Hey, thanks for watching. Back after 10 weeks of no cricket, so it's been a long time since there's been any cricket in the world. But we're back in November. We've got three series coming up, the first of which is what I'm going to talk about today, which is South Africa touring Australia. Also on the cards is probably the biggest, well, one of the biggest series of the summer, or the southern summer, which is England going to India. And finally, it's Sri Lanka hosting New Zealand. We'll talk about South Africa first. I'm going to talk about South Africa first, a little bit less than Australia. Australia we haven't seen for a while, so we'll talk about them more. Coming off obviously a very big series win against England, 2-0. A result that I think was pretty reflective of the series. That first test was a, they dominated them completely. There's no other way to put that. And were solid. I mean, the second test was a very tight test match. As England probably had the best chances to win, although it was evenly balanced. The third test probably wasn't as close to the last scorecard look. South Africa won fairly convincingly. So 2-0 is a pretty good win over a very good team. And a team that's better than Australia. I think that's probably the thing that you need to come back to when you think about this series, is that yes, England and Australia, both pace bowling reliant teams, but England much deeper in their batting card. Even though their batting had a few little stumbles, still a much better batting card. Australia's essentially, I'm going to talk about this a bit more, Clark and nothing beyond that. Whereas Cook, Trott, whatever you think about Peterson to some degree, Bell, and obviously Pryor. And Australia don't even know what kind of keeper they're going to throw out there come the first test. So obviously South Africa, the issue here is going to be their fast bowling, or the issue for Australia is going to be South Africa's fast bowling. We're very good in England against, again, a better card. Philander, for instance, 4 wickets a match at 23.66 in that series, which was coming back to earth series for Philander, particularly the first two tests. Adjusted, showed he's a very cerebral bowler, can play in different conditions, really good with the old ball, kind of player that South Africa needs because their slow bowling has been iffy to say the least. Philander can perform a really good role with the old ball, and now has performed against 4 different teams. So we're pretty much certain now that Vernon Philander is going to be one of the best 5 fast bowlers in the world for probably quite a long time. And against Australia, you might remember, played in the famous 47 series. 7 wickets a match in that series at 13.92 against a basically identical Australian card. So conditions, playing in Gabba, playing in Perth, should be very, very similar. Vernon Philander, no reason to think he won't have a very strong series against a very suspect batting card. Dale Steyn, 6 wickets a match at 26.16 in Australia. Had a very good tour down here, the high score of the bat, I think, as well. 26.16, a little high for Steyn, but the 6 wickets a match more than makes up for it. Steyn, as we've seen in the last few series, is probably on the downswing, or downslope, whatever you want to call it, to his career. But still a very consistent performer, increasingly so. Philander's taking a lot of the new ball worries off his hands, and combined the two are likely to be too much for Australia's batsmen. Morkel hasn't performed very well against Australia and missed out a little bit in that big series that South Africa had with the ball, or substantial series they had with the ball. Only 3.3 wickets a match, and particularly about 38.21 against Australia. The wicket per match is probably acceptable, particularly being the third best bowler on his team, but 38.21 is too high. And someone like David Warner is a pretty good matchup for Australia against Morkel. Short ball, likes to pull. And considering that South Africa apparently, as we saw in that series, don't like to bowl Steyn to left-handers, David Warner has an opening there if he's good enough to take it. We also saw that this South African batting card is probably the best in the world, or pretty much certainly the best in the world now, which will be a test as well. But again, I wanted to talk more about Australia and their prospects, and we haven't seen them play since April. The real concern here is the batting card, which I don't think is a massive surprise to most people. Top 3 looks extremely suspect. Shane Watson, look, people think he's this major player, and maybe in T20 or something. It's not cricket, he is, but he's only played 35 Test matches. He's got 2 centuries in his career. This is not a Test number 3. It's unequivocally not a Test number 3. He's not reliable. He's not playing cricket regularly. Doesn't make centuries. He runs terribly. I'm not saying Watson doesn't have his benefits. He absolutely does. Absolutely does. He's a very confounding player because it's a matter of finding the right fit for him, but he's not a number 3. I think we know that that's true. I think Australia know that too, deep down. Michael Clarke should be batting in that position. Last year he had a poor series. He averaged 95 runs in the South Africa series in the 2 Test matches. Played just 9 matches in the last 2 years, averaging 26.94. It's actually worse than his career average. And only a 17.7 score percentage. This is not a number 3 batsman by any measure. I know he looks quite good. I think he looks like he could play number 3, but we've now got a substantial amount of evidence to say he's not. He's 30 years old or what have you. We're trialling, or Australia are trialling an opening pair that's very much unproven. I think they've got some talent. I think, yes, it could work, but it remains to be seen. And again, Philander-Stein, Morkel. While there are little glimmers there, I mentioned the Warner-Morkel matchup. Werner Philander matches up quite well with someone like Warner, I suspect. It's not a good number top 3. I mean, only really New Zealand or maybe West Indies would have similar quality, low quality number top 3s. It's going to put a lot on Michael Clarke. I think he's the biggest wicket in world cricket at the moment. The top few batsmen in world cricket are very tightly bunched. Cook, Clarke, Sangakkara, maybe hovering in one of the South Africans. But Clarke's by far the most important wicket. I mean, Sangakkara's got support, Alex Cook's got support. Clarke has no one remotely in his class in that batting card. Everyone else, the way I describe it, everyone else is either fading away like Ricky Ponting or Michael Hussey, or just emerging and may or may not work like Warner and Cowan. But Clarke has been great. In the last series, he averaged 49.28 against South Africa. He's got 151 out of 284. I thought that was one of the best innings of the last 5 years against the South Africans. 151 out of 244 while he was at the crease. He averages 58.28 in Australia. I was surprised at that number. It's a very impressive number. A century rate of 4 in his last 20 innings. Again, 5 in the last 20 innings. 86.88 average this year. Batting out of his skull. And he is the wicket. If Australia have any hope at all, Michael Clarke's going to have to bat insanely well. He's going to have to average probably 80 plus. Australia, though, this is a developing team fundamentally. Australia, and they're trying to build this on this pace bowling options, and James Pattinson in particular. I don't think people realise quite how good James Pattinson is. Here in Australia, people go nuts about Pat Cummins. He's played 1 Test match, and he's got a good short ball. And it was against a very good batting card, this batting card, South Africa. But it's 1 Test match, and people go absolutely nuts. I mean, I talk on Crick Info about him all the time and so on, and everyone sort of just doesn't really think about James Pattinson. There's 5.2 wickets a match at 18.96 early in his career. And while India, New Zealand, and the West Indies are not good batting cards, really, it's not like this is Bangladesh or Zimbabwe and stuff. I mean, this is against Test class teams. Will he bowl that well against South Africa? Almost certainly not. And he's going to get a lesson. I mean, that's true. But you can get Jacques Kallis out, for instance. I think there'll be an interesting matchup with his ability to swing the ball against Kallis' propensity to drive. I think James Pattinson's going to have a good series for his career. Even if the numbers aren't great, he's going to have a good series. Behind that, look, Hilfenhaus has bowled really well. I've been a critic. He's bowled great in the last year and a half. Siddle is a really strong, solid player. The pace bowling attack is there. It's a solid pace bowling attack. There's talk that they will play 4 fast bowlers, by far their best lineup. Nathan Lyon, again, they can't afford to keep hiding him, and with Watson there, it's not necessary. Watson can play the de facto slow bowling role. But the bat problems are still permanent. They seem to be permanent at the moment. I mean, despite the strong series against India with the bat, scores of 47, 136, 7 for 192, and 8 for 160 in their last 3 series besides that particular series. And when you look at the South African fast bowling battery they're going to bring here, there's not really a conceivable way Australia can consistently score runs. And while, yes, Pattinson, there's some promising pace bowlers, there is a hole with the old ball, to some degree at least. It sort of comes back down in terms of the pick of this. You look at it and go, okay, look, South Africa played England in England. They won 2-0. Australia have a similar team to England, but they don't have a Matt Pryor. They don't even know who their keeper's going to be. They got 1 batsman. England have 3 or 4 at least, and they don't have Graham Swan. Again, I know Swan's not been great for some time, but he's an awful lot better than any option Australia has. So look at that, and realistically, I don't know how anyone could pick Australia to win the series. I'm going to be optimistic. I think that they'll go 2-1. I think they'll lose 2-1. I think that they'll pick up a Test match. I think they play pretty well at home. They've played really quite well over the last year and a half, better than one might think. I mean, 4-0 victory over India. I know they've been fledgling, but that's a good result. And I think that their development, they're going in the right direction, as they say. So I think that's promising. But look, South Africa's road record is as good as any team in history, just about. They win on the road consistently. And I do think that they'll win in Australia. So that's the pick. South Africa to win 2-1, take lots of wickets. Australia probably just too brutal on the batting card ultimately. Stay tuned. Next week or so, I'll be talking about Sri Lanka against New Zealand. And I also want to have a bit of a chat, I'll extend the chat for the 4 Test series of India and England. Thanks for watching, guys.